Welcome back to my F1 Diaries. These are the last 3 races of the year. Let's talk about Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas.
In the little 2-week break we've just had, it was confirmed that both Valtteri and Zhou will not continue with Sauber for 2025. It will be Gabriel Bortoleto joining Nico in that seat for next year. He is currently leading the F2 championship. I've talked about his win in Monza this year, going from last to first, which was really impressive. It is another new phase for next year, which I'm really excited for. I feel like the amount of rookies for next year is kind of compensating for the fact that we didn't have any starting this year, but I'm sure it will be very exciting to see how everyone is going to go. And about Valtteri and Zhou, I personally am not a fan of either, but it's always sad to see drivers left without a seat. I know they're both trying to stay in the paddock in different ways. I think Zhou may be a reserve driver for Ferrari and Bottas maybe with Mercedes, but I know Bottas also has his cycling. He just did an Ironman in his own home, so I'm sure wherever they'll go next, they'll succeed and have a great time. I do love their friendship a lot. They have a really great relationship, and I hope that continues too after their departure from the sport. And before we get into this weekend, I wanted to talk a bit about the aftermath of Brazil, specifically with McLaren and Lando. They were getting so much hate, which unfortunately isn't a new thing. It's basically much on the daily. But as a McLaren and Lando fan, I just wanted to calm the horses down. First of all, Lando saying it was just luck, not talent, about Max's win. That's not what he said that about. That clip was taken out of context, as per usual with Lando. People just love to twist his words. He actually said that about the timing of the red flag after pitting under the safety car. And he also said it about McLaren and like himself, not about Max at all. So yeah, that's just a fact. The timing of the red flag was a luck. Does that take anything away from Max having a brilliant drive? No. 2 things can be true at once. So that's one thing. Another quote that people were angry about is from Andrea Sella, saying that the World Drivers' Championship was never their first priority, and that mostly annoyed Lando fans. And I am a Lando fan, as you know, but I think a lot of them were taking it the wrong way, because saying that the World Drivers' Championship is not the first priority doesn't mean that they don't want to win it. They were never aiming for it coming into the season. I think they did realize that they can win it a bit too late, but they did take it into consideration. I think they're obviously not ready to fight for both championships exactly because they don't know when, where, or how to prioritize each. But hopefully they learn from these mistakes and go for both next year. And also going back to Lando real quick, after Brazil, he was apparently not in a best mental state, which I'm really glad he shares with us. It's really important to talk about these stuff. But I just wanted to say that he should really be proud of himself. He achieved so much this season. Obviously his first win, then made it into multiple wins, multiple poles, so many podiums. He was in a championship battle with Max Verstappen. He's currently leading the constructors with McLaren. This is an amazing year for Lando, his best of his career actually. And with all the hate that he gets, I know it's really hard to look past that, but he's done incredibly well. And not just this year, but for also sticking with McLaren for that long, helping them build the car, bringing it to what it is today, going through really tough times with them. It's really impressive, and he should be proud. And I also wanted to know that a lot of people love him and cheer for him and appreciate him. And I hate that his best season in F1 so far is being tainted by literally nothing, just people deciding to hate on him. And that's not new in F1. A lot of drivers get hate from multiple different reasons, which are always wrong, by the way. You should never hate on a driver. You're allowed to not like all of them, not cheer for all of them, but hating on someone, wishing death upon them is not okay and is psychotic actually. So I know a lot of drivers get hate, especially when they're successful, and I think it's just crossing a line at this point. And I just wish the internet was not that shitty and brutal all the time. And also real quick, Lando had his birthday in the week after Brazil, so happy belated birthday, Lando. You're doing great. You are loved. And now finally going into Vegas, because Vegas is very performative and all glam and show, there's a lot of special liveries and helmets and suits. So I'm gonna do a really quick round going through all of them. So yes, I love it. Yes, bring colorful liveries back again. Not too special, not too special as well. Not my favorite. At first I didn't like but I'm okay with it now. Yes, absolutely gorgeous. Not my cup of tea. I've already talked about it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely yes. It's fine. Yes, 100 times yes. Yes, this is actually really cool. Oh my god, this is really cool. I kind of hated it at first, but I'm actually fine with it now. Yes, I just wish there wasn't the turquoise in the bottom. And no, I'm not a fan of this actually. And now before going into the action of this weekend, I have to say this might be shorter than usual. I was honestly kind of out of the loop this weekend. All the sessions were in the middle of the night or really early morning for me, and I also had a medical issue to deal with. So this might not be the full coverage I usually do, but I will try my best. I'm also filming this pretty much right after the race, so things might change by the time you're seeing this. And if anything does change, I'll put it on the screen or in the description below if it goes out after I've already posted the video. And without further ado, Vegas is the newest track on the F1 calendar. Technically, there was a Vegas Grand Prix in the 80s, but this specific track joined for the first time just last year. It was met with a lot of criticism at first, but ended up being one of the best races of 2023. So I don't know about you, but I was really excited to see it coming around again. It's a night race in a street track, so not the best racing conditions. It's very cold, and they open up the track for regular traffic during the day. So there's basically little to no grip. And from what I understand, they struggle with graining on the tires, which I never really understood what that is, but it's not degradation, it's something else. So practice, I didn't watch all of them, but from what I've heard and seen, Red Bull apparently brought a wrong rear wing for this weekend, which is kind of hilarious if you ask me. Like, it just reminds me how silly F1 can be sometimes. Like, you're a multi-million-dollar business. What do you mean you packed the wrong thing? So that really hindered on their pace. They also had a engine thing. I don't really know what that was, but they were really off pace for practice. They did, for the rear wing, cut it into shape to try to reduce the drag and downforce on it, which again, like, they're just being crafty, DIYing their rear wing. Kind of silly. Mercedes were on top for all 3 practice sessions, which was somewhat surprising. I know they're good in colder conditions, but I was really expecting Ferrari to be really dominant here. This track's supposed to really suit them, and based on last year, they should be really good. Quali, Perez was out in Q1. Zhou got into Q2. Franco crashed near the end of Q2. That prevented a few drivers from improving their times. The crash itself was really high speed. The impact was over 50 G, which is kind of crazy. Thankfully, Franco was okay and was clear to race, but those Williams mechanics are really going through it. And for Q3, we got George on pole, Carlos P2, Pierre P3, Charles P4, Max P5, Lando P6, Yuki P7, Oscar P8, Nico P9, and Lewis, who didn't have a good run in Q3, closing our top 10. Oh my god, there's so much noise. I hope the mic is not picking this up. There's construction going outside my house, so sorry for that. But moving on to the race, the start was good for Charles. He went from P4 to P2 and got really close to passing George, but couldn't. George pulled off a nice gap in front, and then Charles started falling backwards, got overtaken by Carlos, and then by Max, who also overtook Carlos at one point. Then the first pitting sequence was kind of hectic. Even though this is the second longest track on the calendar, there was a lot of traffic. Everyone who pitted from the front had to clear. Then we had Pierre and Alex DNF with power unit issues. Oscar got a 5-second penalty for a false start. He was over the yellow line in the grid box just by a bit, so that was that. And then for the second pitting sequence, Carlos, who was running in P2 or 3 at that point, I think, was pretty much begging to pit for a couple of laps. And then when being called in old Ferrari fashion, of course, in the last second, they told him to stay out, which means that he crossed the pit entry lane, which is illegal. They haven't noted it during the race or up until where I'm filming this, so nothing has been done about it for now, but that was a bit crazy from Ferrari, slipping back into their not so great strategy calls. Overall, lots of overtaking in the midfield and from Lewis, Max, and the Ferraris. McLaren were really nowhere after the practices, which is a bit surprising and pretty disappointing, but at least we didn't go backwards both in the race and in the constructors, although Ferrari are closing the gap, so it's a bit stressful. But we had a George win, which means that now we have 7 different drivers who won multiple Grand Prix in one season, which is the first in F1 history. So that's very, very exciting. Just once again goes to show how great this season is. And for George, it is very deserved. He was on it from the beginning of the weekend. I mean, we barely saw him, so that means a lot. Won by a comfortable margin from Lewis, who finished P2. Great drive from P10 to P2 is very impressive. That Mercedes was very, very quick today. And again, as I said, surprising for me, but apparently also surprising for Mercedes, who said that they have no idea why they were that fast today. So if you ask me, that's a bit concerning that you don't know why your car is fast, but who am I to judge? I mean, I'm not running an F1 team, right? Then we have Carlos and Charles in P3 and 4. As I said, I thought they would have more pace, but with the Ferrari strategy, that's where they ended up. I mean, it's still a great result. I honestly don't know if they could have done any better with how good the Mercedes were, but I also know that Charles isn't pleased with what happened today, so I'm sure they will have a intense debrief. And yeah, I'm actually pleased that they finished behind the Mercedes just so they didn't overtook McLaren in the constructors. But yeah, great job from them. And then we have Max in P5, but of course, obviously, he won the championship. He's now 4-time champion, equaling Sebastian Vettel for 4 in a row with Red Bull. Maybe a bit underwhelming to win a championship in a race that you don't win, but I don't think he really cares. A championship is a championship. It's very well deserved, very well done to Max. He obviously doesn't have the best car this year, but he still performed very, very well with it. And like Lando said, when he has the best car, he's dominating, and when he doesn't, he's still always there. And I agree, he's proved once again that he's the best driver of this generation. He did have to work a bit harder for this one, as opposed to last year. So I think he's extra pleased with himself, as he should be. And a curious statistic, Nelson Piquet and Keke Rosberg also won their championships in Vegas by finishing 5th in the race. And like, that's a bit crazy. There's only been 6 Grand Prix in Vegas in the entirety of F1 history, and in 3 of them, a driver wins his championship by finishing 5th. What are the chances? It's literally the meme from Phineas and Ferb. If I had an equal for every time a driver won his championship in Vegas by finishing 5th in the race, I would have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened 3 times. So that's actually really cool. So yeah, there's that. And then we had Lando and Oscar in P6 and 7. Again, as I said, the McLaren just didn't have it today. Hopefully they won't continue to perform like this for the rest of the season. I really want them to win the constructors. But then we have Nico Hülkenberg in 8th. Very good job. Yuki in 9th. Checo got to P10, got a point. And oh, I forgot to say that Lando got the fastest lap on the last lap. He pitted for softs and got it. So that's good for the constructors. Fernando finished P11th. Kevin, who actually did just one pit stop, finished 12th. Zhou finished 13. I think that might be his best result of the year. Franco finished 14 after starting from the pit lane. Lance finished 15th. Liam 16. Esteban 17. And Valtteri 18, with the DNFs of Alex and Pierre. And with that, the Drivers' Championship is decided, but the Constructors is still very, very open. And hopefully we go well in Qatar. Until then, enjoy these memes. Bye! I just broke my pen.